All right, so I've been getting a lot of questions on how to UV unwrap. So today we're gonna go through it. So let's just get right into it. I did not make this morph, but I'll be using it as an example of how to UV unwrap. It's be taking you from completely scratch, just the model, to having something that's you can import right into Substance Painter and start texturing with. First off, we can adjust our what we see and stuff. So let's turn on our cavity just so it looks better. This is a Warhammer morph. This is just a base morph. All right, so the first thing we want to look at is what's mirrored. So obviously the chest, it's by itself, but the arms are the same on both sides. The legs are the same on both sides. So what we can do is we just delete those things, so that's mirrored. All right, so before we actually get into modeling everything, I want to show you a few basic things. All right, so what we have here is all the basic shapes. So I'm going to go through all the different ways you can unwrap these things individually. So first, I'm going to show you just the basics. So we're gonna go up to this shading tab right here, which is how you can add materials and you can play around with the nodes and stuff. So I'm gonna do Shift A, add an image texture. It's gonna be connected to the base color. So this is gonna be able to help us preview our texture as we're making it, or preview our map or UV map, not our texture. I want to press New. I select color grid. You can do UV grid. I think color grid's better in my opinion though, so I use that. So we'll go back to layout, and for you, it's gonna, if you go down to this drop down right in the top right corner, it's gonna say material, object, random, attribute, texture, custom. Obviously, random, it just gives you random colors so you can differentiate your parts. We're gonna do texture. So now you can see the UV map. So there's actually no seams on this right now, but we can add a seam, let's say on these faces, we can unwrap it. Now you can see that it's distorted because if you go back to UV editing, we can see that our UV map is all weird. Just for better viewing, I'm gonna go up to here. I want to turn on UV stretch, so we can see that these faces are just super stretched out. So I'm gonna go through a couple ways you can unwrap like a shape of a cube. Let's remove these seams, and then what we can do is, well, we can alt click in face selection mode, Control 2, select these side edges. So we can unwrap that so we have an edge on all sides, and then we can select this top face. And now you have a map that'll look like this. This is just one way to do it. Let's look another way. All right, so this is going to look like more of how a baseball is wrapped. Like how a baseball looks, like the seams, the stitching. So that's kind of like what we have here. So we have these three faces as one seam, as one UV island, and then we have these three faces as another UV island. What else? For this method, we can just make the top face and the bottom face their own separate UV islands. And all four of these faces will make up one island because there's a seam here. If I move that seam, it's gonna be all stretched out. So if I add a seam back, now it'll lay itself back out. We can turn on texture in this tab too. So there's a bunch of ways you can unwrap a model and have visually the same results. So don't think there's one right way to do everything. It depends on what you're doing. If you need more UV space on your map, if your islands are too big, if your islands are too small, you need to cut them up more. So it's all situational. Let's move on to a cylinder. So what we can do is we can just copy this, bring this over. If we just unwrap it, you can see that everything's stretched. Here, I'll auto smooth. So these are stretched, and we can see that they're being automatically split. Like if I had a seam here, and see that we'll update it. So let's make the top faces like that. So this is how you would actually, this is the normal way to unwrap a cylinder, kind of like this last method we just did. where the top and bottom faces their own UV islands. And then you have the side faces being all one island. So that's really the main way to unwrap a cylinder. You won't need to do much else than that. And as we get into the morph, we can see how this plays out. So here's a more complicated shape. I'm just doing this on the spot. Let's see what I come up with. I would probably do an inside scene because it's not as visible. And then on a morph, you'd find the least visible spot to do a scene like that. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do. So that's what the UV island would look like. The whole entire mesh would be one UV island for this torus. And yeah, I like that. What else? You could also do like that too. So now it's 2 UV islands. And then we could probably, let's see. Yeah, we could probably just do that. So now it's 2 circles. So this sop circle, but I think there's going to be a lot of distortion in the texture. So you can see like that. So I like the previous method more. And you just see the texture is going to be less distorted. That's why we use this image texture, so we can see how the texture is going to be laid onto it. So a sphere is a little more complicated. There's no really right way to do this for a sphere. What you can do is you can just cut it in half, but so you have 2 circles. But now there's a lot of distortion, a lot of stretching. You can even cut it in 4ths, but it's a lot better, but it's not perfect. All the lines, these are straight lines, but they're curving on the mesh. Obviously, from this perspective, they're straight, but you know, now they're curving around, so. Let's get rid of all these seams. Really what I would do is probably something like this. And then back one. So it's hard. For a sphere, it's a hard choice, hard decision. So now you have a circle on top. Let's go to the UV editing tab. You have 2 circles and then a long straight one. There's not that much UV stretching. This is like if you really want to optimize it. So yeah. Then we have a cone. I'm sure you could already guess, hopefully you could already guess what this one's gonna be like. Just paste that. So what I'll probably do, mark a seam, and that's pretty much all you have to do. So this whole thing is gonna be like an island. All of these faces is one island, and then 1 circle. It's not perfect, but for a cone, that's really the best you can do. All right, so now that we just have a kind of a better idea how seams work and different ways that we're cutting up our mesh put it onto a 2D plane. Let's go back to the morph. All right, so once we've decided what we're gonna actually unwrap, so we don't have to unwrap the same thing twice with the limbs and stuff, we can separate everything out into the different meshes themselves, so we can just work on it easier. So this is like an extreme example of exploding a mesh. And some of these are like one mesh, you have to go in, press L so you can select that part of it because it's all one mesh, obviously. So you can go in and press L, and you can move these around even though it's part of one bigger mesh. So I'm just go top to bottom. I don't know how much editing I'm going to do with this, but I'm just going to go through this entire morph and just unwrap it because I unwrapped a morph. This pretty much with this base, but it was a lot more complicated. So I'm doing the simpler one for this tutorial. So I'm gonna start with top to bottom. I'm gonna go to shading, add this. Oh yeah, but first I actually do want to talk about texture sets. So this is, you can see that over here, it's material 6. I can apply material 6 to this as well. Actually, first I'm gonna go into here. I might just delete all my materials because I made some for that demonstration. So now if I go into here, now it's material and then it become 1, 2, 3, whatever. But yeah, so I can go into this material and I can unwrap 2 different meshes together. And then when you import it into Substance Painter, it doesn't read meshes, it reads textures. So this is going to be all considered like the same thing. It's going to be textured in the same. You'll see what I mean later. Anyways, so let's do this. I want to isolate flat faces. So here, for example, we can just do that. So now this is more or less a flat face. I just isolated it by making it its own island. So all of this is its own island in the UV map. You can see there's a little bit of distortion down here because of this little concave shape. So I can just relieve some of the stretching that's going on. So now this is its own UV map, and then this is its own UV map. And if you go to UV editing, we can press this little switch thing so I can always see it. And you might be wondering, why did I put seams right here? It'll, because it just relieves a little bit of the stretching. See, if I add that back, if I remove those seams, this face is getting stretched a lot because it's like, it's trying to make this a flat thing, even though it's not. So these hard corners, I'll put a seam and it relieves it. And we can see that we have a lot more work to do. So there's basically almost no distortion left. You can see there's a little bit of this here. That's just because of this stuff that's going on. But is it worth it in the grand scheme of things to add another seam along here, make a whole nother island so that, oh, perfect, you know, there's no more thing. But, you know, you're not even going to see this. It's going to be like up against the torso. So it doesn't really matter that much. If it's a very important area, like on top of here maybe, or on a more flat face, you probably would want to add another island just to make it like more perfect, but we don't have to do that here. So I'm gonna go on the other side, start adding seams. I'm going to include this because even though it is curved in 3D space, in 2D space, this can all be stretched out into a flat plane, you know. You know, that's what it would look like metaphorically. And then I'll make this bottom face in its own island, so there's no doesn't have to wrap around the mesh here. And then we'll do this. This could also be a very like a flat face. There's no curving. It'll just become flat. Here, let's go back. We can even see it. So it's just flat, even though there is an angle, you know. So yeah, there's not much distortion in the texture like that. There's a little bit of curving and stuff, but it's not the end of the world. I would honestly be happy just with this. So these are all the UVs we just made. And there's not much stretching going on. A little bit of stretching right here, as you can see. Yeah, it's not bad. So let's keep going. And I probably won't, the farther I go, I'll probably shut up more and just make it like a time lapse or something, but we'll see. So what we have for this, which I don't usually recommend, is having these internal faces. I probably could just, because you're not going to see that, you know. So I might just, I'm holding down Control and just clicking to do these like wide sweeping selections. Really cool trick. I'll probably just inset. I'm pressing B to do that. Maybe just delete that. Because see, they already did the optimization by deleting these faces, so I don't know why they didn't. Again, I didn't make this model, so. But just for the sake of argument, I'll leave it. But just can show on that later. So now all of this, if you go selected seam, yeah, it's gonna be its own thing right there. It's nice and flat. There's no distortion really. So we can move on to the top. So I'm gonna isolate this. So now all of this is gonna be its own thing. So you need even curves, just like but you can see the UVs are flat on it. You know, there's not like a lot of curving. There's a little bit right here, but it's not bad. And that's that mesh done. So pretty much what we did was we just separated this from the top and bottom faces, and see that they look great. So pretty much we just do that again, because this is the same model pretty much. Yeah, so we just did the same thing in like 2 seconds, and it's perfect. So there's no inside faces here, so we can just isolate. And to fast unwrap, I probably should have said this earlier, but I'm just pressing U twice, so I'm not even clicking to unwrap it. And there's a little bit of distortion, but what can you do with these really curved faces anyways? You could even do that. It's not really worth it. You can see right here. So it's not worth it to put a seam there, even though traditionally it'd probably be wiser to put seams on these hard edges, but it just takes up too much UV space, I think. But it's just Roblox, who cares? All right, so these are a little more complicated. I've already unwrapped these before with a different morph, and the UVs react very weirdly on these. So the method I came up with was isolating these back faces. I'm alt clicking to select all these edges at once. Sorry, the UV sharp, which might make it hard to read, but I'm clicking. Okay, so now all of these internal faces pretty much are perfect, but these outer faces, you can see like these lines. That's why we use this image detector, so we can see the distortion that's going on. So what I did was I went into face select mode, pretty much selected all of these, just do that. So we're selecting this top face as well as these, and you'll see why in a second. Okay, so I have all of them. So I'm just gonna press 2. So instead of faces, I'm selecting my edges now. I'm gonna deselect these edges going along the front face because I don't want to add seams to those. Boom, so I have seams along all of that. This face is gonna be isolated for each one because it really messes up the whole model. And then I can just add seams along the front here, and then pretty much that makes it perfect. So I'm just gonna do that for the rest. Yeah, and boom. So that wasn't as easy as it looked, because I have unwrapped these before and it was a little bit confusing finding the right method for what I want to use on the unwrap. So, but yeah. And then move these back down because this was all one piece. Here, you can move this. Okay. This, yeah, probably goes up. Boom, yeah. So that's the shoulder all unwrapped. And see the size of each one of these cubes or squares, whatever. The size determines the UV scale. So let's, here, for example, let's add a cube. And we can even make it the same material just for simples. And see the size actually is pretty accurate. But if I make it smaller, obviously the scale is gonna look, it's gonna be 2-to-1 ratio to size. So across all of your things in your morph, you want the same sized squares. We'll get more into that later, but so I think that's pretty dense already, or the squares are pretty big already. So I'm gonna move on to my next set. But ideally, I would want like this material to apply to the whole arm, and then the next material to apply to the whole leg, and then the whole torso. But this is a more complicated morph in the sense that there's just more topology that has to be unwrapped. So now we have material 1. We'll do the rest of the arm real quick. So for these things earlier, it's pretty much the same thing how you would unwrap a cylinder. I would just put a seam here. This is the most hidden place because you're not going to see it unless like they move their arm out, whatever. So that's the best place to put seams for these circular cylindrical objects. So if I unwrap that, it's on the right track, but there's a lot of distortion that's going along with the topology, and it just does not look good. So I can isolate these bottom faces. So this is all one UV island now. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, looks like there's no stretching, it's fine. But there is a lot of stretching still going on here. We can even separate that out. So now this is its own island, but that wasn't really worth it. Let's undo that. So problem is there's just not enough. It's just too wide of an area. In a perfect world, you could just do that, and it's still not that good. Oh, here we can isolate those. Nice. So that's a lot better. So what I did was isolated the top, so these, as well as the bottom, and even here. So this is really its own island. So it makes it a lot harder for, because it was distorting it by like wrapping along the top here, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna apply material 1 to this, separate out this mesh, start with this. Yeah, so isolate the top face. Maybe the bottom face, probably not worth it, but yeah, it's not bad. It's a little distortion. So yeah, but now there's distortion up there, so just add another seam, and then boom, that's not bad at all. I mean, that's pretty much like a perfect unwrap. The only issue is that there's a lot of seams, so there's a lot of different islands. So depends on your preference. Oh yeah, so this is a different mesh too. How does that look? See, there's a lot of this cyan color, so it's a lot of distortion. So we can also isolate the top and bottom faces. So now, yeah, each and every one of these, it's all nice deep blue. And then for this one, same philosophy. Yeah, it's perfect. Move it all back. Back to normal. Okay. Let's see what the density is. So it's already getting a little close. It's still smaller than, the squares are still smaller than these squares, so we can keep going. Adding topology to this map. Yeah, same philosophy, I think, would work. So this front face looks perfect, but obviously we need to cut up that face. Probably just add that one thing. Another over here. Yeah, it's not terrible. It's all like a nice deep blue now. This wasn't even that necessary. I just didn't like how much space it was taking up. Because when it's cut in half, it can be arranged differently. So, probably wouldn't. Actually, so the thing is, these are a lot smaller and the arm is done, but I don't want to have like top leg and like bottom arm have the same texture set, so I might move something to the other texture. Maybe like this. So I unwrap these together. Let's do this for everything. Apply scale just to make sure that's unwrapping right. And then set origins geometry, so origins there. Just to make sure the UVs are representing. Yeah, it's weird. These are very dense. And you can see how distorted this actually is, but it's hidden underneath this thing, so I don't care that much. I think it's better. You can see these squares are bigger, and they don't have to be perfect compared to this. But yeah. So what I could have done is I could have kept this as material, make this material 1, unwrap these together, and then unwrap these together. Let's see how that looks. Yeah, see these are smaller and these are bigger. I don't know how much I like that because I knew that this is a lot of UV space. So I might just keep it my original change. Just making sure. Yeah. All right. So that's the arm done. We can just move it aside just for now, maybe. I'll decrease this. I don't normally stay in this UV tab, but just for the sake of so you guys can see what's going on, probably be helpful. So we have to add a new material. I'll do the chest now. I'm going to split this up into multiple different ones because you already see how big these squares are. So if you just unwrap it, you see, yeah, you need to start doing this. So we'll start the easy stuff, cylinders. Isolate this whole front face. And then see how it's distorted. So we'll add a little cut in the bottom so this can wrap around perfectly. So these edge faces, whatever, are perfect. But there's a little bit of distortion because this is not going to translate into a perfectly ideal face. So what I did for the last one, because I had these two, I put seams in these indentations, and then that was pretty good, but there's still a little distortion happening right here. If you really cared, I don't care enough, so that's fine. It looks pretty good. Same for this side. All right, so let's move on to this big simple shape. So I just isolated the top and bottom. Alt click doesn't go around all the time. Cool. So now these faces, these islands, good. And then we just split it down the center. This is the side of the chest. You're going to see it very often. Besides, like when they're walking, when they're standing still, that's the the pose stance. You don't want to see any obvious seams while it's posing, whatever. I don't know. That's my philosophy, and that's what game studios do. They hide their seams. This is gonna be a little complicated shape, but just because it's annoying, it's a big clunky piece. Let's move it up so we can see it better. Probably put seams on these edges, and then yeah, that's pretty good. So if let's remove these seams. See what it looks like. Oh, it's horrible. So if I add these seams back, you can see how much of a difference it really makes. It's like pretty much perfect, besides like right there. But yeah. So that's the front face. Perfect. Let's probably isolate the sides. Let's do the edges first too. See, that doesn't even look that bad. Is there any distortion? Okay, yeah, so it's a little curved right here. Yeah, we could do that. So now it's this bottom face is its own thing. And there's a little distortion going on. So now this little extrusion is its own thing too. Perfect. We leave the we leave the stress with this. And then you might have to do that for the whole thing itself too. And yeah, even this. Yeah, so that's the whole thing. That's UV unwrapping when you know what you're doing. It's not that, doesn't take that long. That was like what, 30 seconds. So unwrap this. Okay, so isolate this front face, and then these faces kind of follow suit. So that's perfect. This is weird, but I don't want to have seams on the edges because when you're texturing, it reads curvature, and it'll obviously, like with procedural textures, it'll take that into account with the texturing, whatever. And when there's a seam on the edge and you try to have like an edge effect, like a, you know, like the edge is scraped up or whatever, it looks really weird because there's a seam there and it can't accurately put textures there. So that's why you want to hide your seams, because your seams just don't look good. All right, this is a weird one. I remember this. I'm gonna isolate the behind face. So all this is okay. Yeah, so this is its own thing now. Let's do these side faces. So yeah, I'm just right clicking and clicking really fast because it saves where your cursor was on this thing. So if I, you know, just click bisect, it's gonna save that I was on bisect last. So just mark seam is my last one. I think that looks pretty good. There's a little bit of distortion right here. I don't care enough though. It's not that big a deal. It just means like if you have like a very specific like design, like a skull that's like right here, the skull's gonna look weird. But if you really did care, you could just probably do something like that. But you have a lot more seams now. You have a seam here, 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 here. But now it's perfect. But yeah, I don't like having all those seams. Let's put this all back together. Don't click random buttons. Okay. If we compare the size of these squares to the arm, these are way bigger. So that means we're gonna have to split up this model into different textures so we can just pack our UVs more efficiently. So what I did before, something like this, so basically splitting it off in half. Unwrap that alone. Unwrap that alone. So yeah, it's almost, you know, almost perfect. And then compare between both of these. It's good. So we have a lot. We're gonna be able to pick a lot more detail in the texture. So these squares are a lot smaller. And then, but we do have more torso stuff. We have this little back jetpack thing, and obviously the head, this detail part. So we might need another texture, or we want to just suck it up and have, you know, these be the standard. These size squares be the standard. Let's unwrap this. Let's put it with texture 2. I can just I know what I'm gonna do already, so select these, mark the seam. So now all these faces are their own seams. Isolate the back for this one. And then it's a little distorted, obviously. See, that's almost perfect. Just put a seam along that edge. Let's do a similar thing there. These things make it a little weird, so I'm actually just gonna delete these interfaces. I didn't do this last time, but there's no point in having them. Just wasted UV map space for something you'll never see. So I'm selecting these edges, but seams, just so it de-stresses it. Oh shit, they're overlapping. No, I probably didn't notice that last time. So let's undo that. See, they're really stressed. But if I unstress them, oh, that would work. But if I unstress it like that, then it overlaps. Okay. So I'm gonna just do top 4. Oh, I'm gonna take a drink. Hold on. Okay. A lot of distortion going on. Probably just have to add another to make this edge just seem to, which is unfortunate. You don't really want to have the top and bottom be a seam, but now it's perfect, so kind of have to do it sometimes. Unwrap these together, and because see, yeah, now the squares are about the same size as the shoulder, and I don't want to go really any bigger than that, because then you just lose out on detail, especially if you have tighter squares somewhere else on the morph. It's really important. We probably just have all of these as their own texture too, so it's gonna be a little weird jetpack in the head. It's their own texture. Texture 4. So let's go front to back. I wanna isolate these faces just so they don't, nothing wraps over them and stuff. I'm gonna check my recording. Hold on. All right, the recording's fine. Let's continue. So yeah, so I separated these out and then this out, and we have this ton of distortion going on. For these little indents, this is the best solution I have. Alt click. Seam. So now they're isolated, and you see they're really distorted. All you have to do, though, alt clicking, Control 2. If you press 2, then it selects everything. So Control 2, it'll select just, these ones, whatever. And then now it's perfect. So there's just seams here now on these corners. And go to the UV thing and see, yeah, it's all relieved. That's they're these. Whew. Okay. Let me do the same for the visor. In theory. I don't want to edge split. The visor itself is a little distorted. Yeah, I might have to make the whole thing itself its own island. So yeah, I think that looks pretty good. All right, let's do 4 onto this one. I think this one will go faster. This is its own mesh. This is pretty much a torus, so yeah, that's all you need to do for that. I'll leave that up just so better visibility. Okay, so this is on mesh 2. I think if I just get these side faces so then it doesn't have to wrap around, it's not terrible. Maybe these has to wrap less. Yeah, it's pretty good. These squares, I'm just gonna isolate these side faces, or make this one island or 3 islands in total. Boom. Perfect. These cylinders, probably that. So the thing is, the reason I didn't make it like this is because this is gonna flatten out a lot better than this would flatten out. Put that extra seam on the bottom. Yep, that's it. And for this, let's see, where is this going? So I can hide a seam where this will lay. And let's just bring everything back down just to see how it's gonna look. So I can hide a seam going like that. Let's move it back down, I can't see. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think that looks good. Bring that back. Yeah. Boom. Alright, jetpack it is next. Just gets a little repetitive, but gotta push through it. So I'm thinking about making this whole thing one island. And there's not even that much distortion, so what I can do is these divots, make them their own. So a lot less distortion, and then these get their own freedom. These divots get to be their own islands. A little bit of distortion here. Yeah. So okay. So this is its own island, and then that is its own island too. We'll do that on the other side as well. Boom. Alright, cylinders, very simple. Hide the seams. Because there's so much like indents, when I was doing this before, it was the same jetpack. Yeah, I just did a bunch of seams. And then seam out this. And then, yeah, make that go all the way through. Boom. Boom. Alright, yeah, that's good. For perfect cylinder, let's just do that real quick. So these side faces, once again, and then this is going to be inside, so just put a hidden seam. Perfect. Let's put a seam on the inside of these right here. There's this wouldn't work if there was a face here, as you can see, but since it's hidden, we don't need a face there, so we just keep it like that. So I'm just going to keep doing this same philosophy that I did with that. Boom. A lot of distortion. Let's go to the corners, add some seams. Bisect. Isolate the whatever these are. Put a seam in one of the corners. These are distorted, so let's make this front face isolated as well. And you can see there's little checker patterns here, so I know it's not distorted. Let's put a seam there, put a seam here, why not? Perfect. Almost perfect. Oh yeah, these. Same method as the smaller ones. Yeah, so the seam would be more hidden on this side. I'm starting to see it from this angle. Isolate these side faces. No brainer. Yeah, perfect. Oh, more cylinders. Didn't even see those. Perfect. I'm not sure what to do about that. I guess I could just do that, make that perfect, and then make this distorted. I don't know why. Is this cutting? It must be, right? Ah, see. That's why you don't click, because it didn't do that. Happened last time too, I forgot. That's also, you have to do this, but yeah. Okay. Jetpack, let's see, pretty proportional actually, surprised. Jetpack's a little dense, actually not that much. That's pretty good. So yeah, we had to make this 3, 2, 3, and 4, just for the torso. And then oops, we can move on to the lower torso. Number 5. Hide the seams here. Boom. Oh, that's bottom face. We can delete we can delete that. Boom. Put 5. And since there's no faces, all you need is one line down the back. Yep. Let's separate. Oh yeah, there's a ton of meshes. Let's go top to bottom. I don't know why there's back faces here. You don't need them, but I didn't make the model, so we don't judge. Perfect. Not perfect. Hey, yeah. That's perfect. Move on. Probably do 3. Just because it's going to be a weird shape, and you have to suck it up sometimes with these weird shapes. You're not going to get a non-distorted texture. Oops. and then break it down the sides because it's hidden relatively. And then all these outsets will do the same thing we did with the jetpack ones. So now this is perfect, but these aren't perfect. Actually, does that? Oh, that works. I was worried they're going to be like overlapping with each other, but no. Because that's really annoying when textures overlap themselves in the UV map, and then it just ruins the whole texture, so. Perfect. Moving on. This is the same as that, and pretty much all of these are, but those get a little more complicated. So all these inside faces are done. These outside faces, I'm probably just going to treat it as like a normal flat face. Or, damn it, I keep moving my 3D cursor. I could treat this as its own, and then this can be its own too. I'll probably do that. I'll see what it looks like both ways. So that's separate. And that's together. Yeah, there's no difference. I'll just do it together. Oh yeah. So that's good now. Again, don't worry about the model. Just try and focus on the techniques I'm using to unwrap it. This model is really cool. But it's not something that is made with how I make stuff, so. Okay, that's the lower torso. Let's move everything back. Perfect. What's our size looking like? I mean, yeah, we can just lower torso by itself. Let's go on to the legs. We're almost done. What are we at, like an hour, if that? Doesn't feel like it, but. Okay. Oh, actually, I didn't have to do that. So I start at the top, and then I can. This is probably. Yeah, boom. That's good. Less seams. Try to aim for less seams. Don't do unnecessary seams, but. Oh, it's getting hot in here. I turned the fan off so you wouldn't hear it in the mic. 6. There's inside faces, bro. Like what? All right, we'll just roll with it. There's no. I don't know about that. Now, I'm gonna delete these faces. I'm gonna put a seam here so I can just select and all those. Delete that. Easy. Thanks, smarter, not harder. Yeah, this is the inside. It's a little distorted, but if you don't care that much, if you don't want to put like specific designs on this, like decals, whatever, distortion isn't really that bad. But if you do want to put like designs on it, I would just do that. But I don't want all the extra UVs. takes up space on the UV map. What are we doing with? Yeah, we have plenty. Plenty of space. Inside faces again. Well, I guess you're gonna be able to see the inside of this, so it makes more sense. Isolate inside faces, and then the outside faces. Yeah, it's perfect. And then there is no inside faces on this one, so I'm gonna isolate these side edges again, so the texture doesn't have to wrap around them. Let's do that. Just a lot of distortion going on there. Still, oh yeah, that's why. I think that's pretty good. All right. How are we doing? Oh yeah, that's right. This is gonna act weird. Let's put the seams there. Yeah, so you see how like these are a lot bigger than that one? Let me see if that's a scale thing. No, it's not. Yep, some things just act differently, so what are you gonna do? But yeah, this is not really meant to be like a follow along. Oh, I didn't. It's just kind of like just so you can see my process. If you watch this enough, you'll be able to unwrap just like me with enough practice. I used to think it was not worth doing either. I tried to plug in, that did not stick. And then, so I just put up with somewhat bad UVs for a while. And then eventually I just got good enough at UVs where it became worth it. Because it doesn't feel like it's worth it when you get crappy UVs because you don't know what you're doing. But yeah. Isolate these side faces. I keep moving my 3D cursor. And then these. Oh. And there we go. Perfect. How are we looking comparatively? Okay, yeah, so we're kind of maxed out. But we don't have that much left, so that would make another texture, who cares? Oh, what the hell? Oh. Yeah, inside faces again. Why? Honestly, there could be a reason that I just don't care enough about. It's the inside, and then boom. Since this is going to be over it, we could actually hide another seam here. Let's move that one. And less distortion. 7. I mean, I don't need. I mean, there's a little bit of distortion going on, but that's really the only way to fix it, by putting seams there, but I guess it's fine. And we got the boot. Isolate the bottom. Perfect. And we do like that. So I say that's kind of like the top, quote unquote. And then a side. That's pretty much perfect. It's a little bit of distortion, but it's a curved surface. You can't really get away from it. You want to be you really want to be worried about distortion on these like flat faces or just like one-dimensionally curved. This is like a three-dimensional curve, or however you want to call it, whatever. And then since naturally these are going to be smaller, you can just go to UV editing and scale them down just so they match. Yep. Let's bring it all together now. So that's the leg. Bring over the torso. Boom. So let's check for inverted faces. Really? Okay. Well, I did flip the faces already, but if you do, like here, let's say like you turn that on and like this is red, just press Shift N, and if it's not doing anything, just click this bottom left. Select everything, origin geometry, just so it's easier to play with in Studio. Let's see what this looks like, because I have not checked each individual map yet. It's up in Substance. Oh, this is the other one I made. I textured. Didn't make the model, remember? Okay. Let's bake it. I'm not going to change any settings, just see what it looks like. One second, don't look at this, don't put this in the video. There we go. Okay. So we immediately see there's something going on with the head. So material 4. Oh, maybe is that really it? I actually made them the same. 4, 4. Oh, really? Damn. 5, 5, 5. This just has to be 5. And that's it. Yeah, that was it. Oopsie. Let's try again, see what happens. And just a little bit of an iterative process. I'm going to show you, there's a lot more things you have to check for than just obvious errors like that, to make sure you have a good base. All right, let's take a look. No obvious texture errors yet. We can go into normal. We'll see some tiny, well, not that normal. It is normal. Sometimes you can see some like individual faces that are acting up. What you want is pretty much this, just a silhouette. Okay, see, like you have that. What is that? Okay. Let's check this out. Jetpack. This. This is a 4, so. Okay, yeah, so normally, I don't know. Oh. There, okay, I'm confused. So why is this bugging? I'm gonna just add some topology, see if that fixes it. Let's check if this is all for. Yeah, okay. Let's check if that fixed it. It's just weird sometimes. Maybe there's a good reason for it, but I do not know it. Let's bake it again. You could go in Blender and check on this all manually. Like look at all your UV maps, see if there's any overlappings or whatever. So you have to bake it less, but I have a good PC, so I don't mind baking it over and over. I know some people, baking is like a nightmare. Let's check it. Nope, it's still there. Let's see the 3D, 2D. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. This is always something you gotta deal with, though. Just random funky stuff. Oh, just flipped. Maybe that'll fix it. Let's check something else, though. Let's check ambient occlusion. We would have saw that a little easier. Yeah, I don't see anything, so I think that's our only thing. Okay, let's export this again. I'm glad that this did have that thing, because it's important to know how to solve these issues. No way. What? Did I delete it on accident? Oh. Oh, that's great. That's just great. Do it again. Nope. Fuck, it's still there. So this is when I just want to retopologize that area, probably. Just change topology so it reacts different. Unwrap it again. I don't see any overlapping, so I really don't know why it's doing all that. But trial and error. This is important, though. And I fixed it. Let's check if anything else. Oh, all looks good. Ambient occlusion. A model error, but that's irrelevant. Yeah, this looks good. So let's now talk about setting up our textures. So as you can see, the ambient occlusion is including between texture sets. What we can do is have it react to only it itself. So it doesn't, here, I'll just show you. Set it from always to only same mesh name. Bake it again. All right, so now we're in ambient occlusion, and you can see that they're mutually exclusive, so they don't, leave a bunch of shadows in the texture and stuff. So all I did for that was I did common settings, ambient occlusion, curvature, thickness, and bent normals. And anything that says always, change it to by mesh name, or, only same mesh name. So it'll just make it so that they bake according to only like each individual one. But since we do have some stuff that we would want to interact with each other, like this with this, because these are two different texture sets, I think. Let me double check. Oh, no, they're not. Okay, that works. Let me see. Is there anything? No, I think that's pretty good. But if you really wanted to, like if you want to have shadow cast by this top thing onto the ropes, let's see. Oh, these are the same material too. Either way, you can undo that, put all these by always, press the little arrow, and then just bake that one individual mesh after exploding the mesh and moving it away so that it'll interact, for example, with the ropes and this, but it won't cast shadow from, the torso onto the side. So that's what the exploding mesh is good for. But I rarely explode my meshes. But yeah, I think that's everything. That's a completely unwrapped morph, start to finish, and we can, here, look, we can even throw a bronze statue, smart material, instance this. Doesn't that look great? You can throw my custom enhance. Boom, look at that. It's all nice, huh? It's my custom recipe. Thank you, DebDelix. Yeah, but that's everything. All right, see ya.